All right, should be good. Yo, what's going on, guys? RudyWade TCG back at it again for another video after quite some time because I didn't really feel like doing expanded meta discussions. So we're back here for Daytona with Standard, and I'm joined here with three guests, Joe Turrentine, Christian Chase, and Finn Lynch. So if you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves in that order, you can go ahead.
I'm Joe. Just recently got 22nd at Portland Regionals. Not Portland, my bad. Richmond, Virginia. And I play for Infinite Gaming.
All right.
What's up, guys? I'm Christian. I'm a player from South Florida. I've been playing for a long time, but I never really played competitively until this year, which is kind of ironic because I moved to a place where there's no local scene whatsoever. But in the past 4 months, the two tournaments that I've been to are Atlantic City and Knoxville, and I made day 2 at both. I think 40-something at AC and 34th at Knoxville, both with greens Reshiram. Deck's bad, but I played it. So.
Hey, I'm Finn Lynch. I got a website called cuttertap.com, and I like to play Pokemon.
All right. So, I guess I'll do my shout out right now. Shout out to ROC Games LLC. All right, here we go. So to start it all off, we're going to talk about the deck that just did recently win LAIC, which is the first standard event in the new Cosmic Eclipse format, which is Ability Reshiram. How do you guys think this deck is positioned going into the Daytona meta? Do you think it's any differently positioned than it was for LAIC? Because now that we have an established metagame, or do you think that it's just still the play?
I mean, realistically, the deck is good. Any format you played in, it's just you just literally luck sack every opponent you ever play. I mean, if you don't draw good, you don't win. But if you draw good, you win. I mean, it can pretty much beat anything it needs to beat, and it just whether or not it does it or not is the problem. So I feel like it's fine to play for Daytona, considering it just either does it or doesn't, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a fine play. I just think it took LAIC by storm, kind of how it took Worlds by storm when Tour got top 4 with it, because when the meta's not defined, Ninetales is just really good. But that was kind of the main reason I played greens when I did, because one Stealthy Hood can completely swing the matchup against Ability Reshiram, and it turns like an unfavorable matchup, even when they draw well, into a favorable one. And I think people will be prepared for that in Daytona, knowing that it's actually a deck again. So if you want to play high roll, play it, and hope to dodge people who know how to deal with Ninetales. That's about it.
I don't think it's that good anymore. I mean, I've never been a fan of the deck, so I'm not necessarily one to talk, but I just don't think going with that kind of high roll deck is a good idea right now, because there are other high roll decks you can go with that are not trying to be countered. So if you're just the type of person that's like, I want to run hot and win, probably just want to try and find a different high roll deck. I'd suggest Mewtwo personally. But yeah, I don't think it's that amazing of a play right now with hoods going back into decks pretty much.
Yeah, so speaking of Reshiram, do you guys think the greens version is better positioned for this tournament, or is it equally as terrible?
Realistic, it's not that good in this format. I feel like it was good last format because there was a lot of like bigger decks that like you could tank hits with, but now there's just Dolls, Pidgey, just a lot of little decks that you can't beat realistically. It's really hard to beat the littler decks with the big tag team decks like Reshi and such.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to make it work again to run it back for a third time, but like it is not good. And when you auto lose to Pidgey and Baby Blounds Pidgey, especially in Florida, which those are going to be those two in Malamar is basically all you see down here. It's just really not a good option.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's not, I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really feel like it's, well, is it favored against Ability Zard? You know, right? Because you've been playing it?
Yeah, basically, if you play the one hood and it's not prized, it's 100-0. I smiled very hard when I played Ability Zard and didn't prize hood. It's very bad for they can't do anything. You just stream 2 Volks and then you have 2 Reshizards set up.
And I assume you have like plant stamp actually. Yeah. Oh,
a 3/3 plant stamp. It's really hard to deal with.
I mean, if you're beating the deck that just won, that sounds. Do you beat Mewtwo as well, right?
Yeah, I guess I actually haven't tested the new greens versus the new Mewtwo,
but
I mean, yeah.
But do you
plant stamp's always
right?
good.
You definitely cannot beat dolls.
No, you can't. You cannot beat dolls. You can't beat Blacephalon.
Yeah.
Pidgey's like 100-0 Pidgey.
Yeah, I mean, Malamar is not a favored matchup. You can still win, but it's not good. I feel like it's definitely not a good shout for this tournament. It might be good to beat like the decks that kind of carried over from last format, but the new decks, the new archetypes are not good for this deck.
Yeah, when you're like trading like 1 for 3 and you're just going to see a bunch of Baby Bomb Pidgey, because I know like 7 of my local players that I saw today at locals are bringing Blacephalon Pidgey, and it's just you can't beat it.
Yeah, I mean the deck doesn't sound amazing, but doesn't sound too bad to me either if you are just playing a deck that you're hoping to like hit the right matchups with, because if you're just trying to farm the decks that got 1st and 2nd place at Brazil, kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, probably not the best play in the world.
All right, moving on to the next deck. Not quite the deck that got 2nd just yet, because I want to talk about a newer archetype which just came out, is ADP. So speaking of the deck, do you think the greens version is better, or do you think the ability version is better? And do you think that this deck is still a strong play going into the event, based on the amount of hype we have with it coming from the last event? So yeah, go ahead and drop your thoughts. We'll go reverse order this time. Finn, then Chris, and then Joe.
I mean, what do you mean still a good play? Like, the deck sucks.
The deck sucks?
You're not wrong. It's so bad.
No, I'm kind of exaggerating. I mean, ADP is the deck that I play when I want to not think and I just kind of want to enjoy playing Ends Resolve. I know a lot of people hate Ends Resolve, but I think you can't really play it without Ends Resolve or that or playing Rayquaza with Energy Switch, and I'm like, okay, so your options are discarding the top 6 and then getting some energy, or discarding the top 3 twice and then energy switching. So it's like, okay, yeah, sure, play your Rayquazas. It just takes up more cards on your list. So personally, I don't like the greens thing very much. I'd rather have the energy acceleration, because when you face things like Blounds or Mewtwo, they can just one-shot you before you can even have enough energy to use whatever it's called, the 3 energy attack that
creation. Or wait.
Well, that's the GX attack. I was talking about
Ultimate Ray,
right? Because you need to get an Ultimate Ray off before they one-shot anything, or else you have no energy in play. So I think you need Ends Resolve to make ADP even viable. And I don't really think you can do that in the greens build. And if you play the greens build, I just feel like you get run over by anything that can one-shot you on turn 2. I mean, even if they have stuff like Plant, which I don't think they have, and Stamp, I still feel like Mewtwo is going to beat you eventually with double Marshadow. So, yeah, in my opinion, the only viable version is with Dedenes and Ends Resolves, but that's just me.
I completely agree with that. I think the greens version has the same issue that greens Reshizard does. It's too slow for this format, and ADP is slow on its own, so you need the End Resolve to set everything up. And I think the biggest thing it had going for it was the Cryogonal tech, that basically autoed the stall matchups. But I know that a lot of Pidgey players are teching the Frostlass and stuff like that to easily get around one Cryogonal.
I'm gonna leak right now with the Tyrogue.
Oh yeah, the Tyrogue. I mean,
yeah. I was thinking about running Tyrogue before LAIC, but it didn't have any purpose before then. But now Tyrogue is broken.
Tyrogue is the tier 1 leak right now. I mean, everybody knows about it, but nobody's talking about it because nobody wants to leak it. But Tyrogue is the way to beat Crag, if you're a stalled player. All right, continue.
Yeah, there's just so many techs to beat the Cryogonal, and then the Pidgey matchup's really, really bad if you don't have a consistent Cryogonal up. And also, even Dollstall has that Spiritomb Rainbow, and it just really can't. If it loses a Cryogonal, ADP loses to the stall matchups, which is bad. I mean, it beats Malamar, so I mean, if you want to beat Malamar. Play 9 Malamars in day 2. That'd be great, but you won't. So.
I haven't tested with the deck much. I don't know much about it. I just think it's really bad. I've seen gameplay of it, and I've seen like people around me play. It just doesn't seem very good. Consistency-wise, if you miss the end resolve, you kind of just lose. If you're playing the end resolve version, then like you kind of just sit there and do nothing until like you start to take prizes. And yeah, if you don't get the GX attack off really early, you kind of just sit there and lose. I don't think it's very good.
I want to say a couple more things about it actually, because like I've been using this deck a lot lately, even though I don't think it's amazing. But like I actually think it's significantly better than a lot of people give it credit for. But I just think it hasn't been explored a lot yet. Like there's pretty much one version of ADP that's been played, and it's like you've got some Keldeos and you've got like 3 or 4 ADP, and you might play Ends Resolve, maybe you play Greens, but there's like nobody's really putting anything special with it, and the engine hasn't been explored a ton. So I think there's a lot of potential with it. But I think it's just the new Pikarom. Like it's taking extra prizes. It's a big tag team and it accelerates energy with a very similar attack to Full Blitz. It's the deck that's going to beat all the one prize decks and a lot of the rogue stuff and a lot of the stuff that's not fast enough. So you can play ADP and have a good day 1 if you just build a good consistent list, and then you might run into problems day 2 because Mewtwo beats you. But like I actually just think it's not a bad deck at all. And if you're not very good at Pokemon, you should probably play ADP.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, isn't there like a list that like did well that ran no Keldeos and just the Lucario Melmetal? Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah, and
I think that was the
double
Greens. It was the Greens.
It was a Greens build with double Cryogonal, and
that just seems kind of bad. I mean, it worked obviously, but it just seems like I feel like ADP can kind of get like if you know how to play against the matchup, you can kind of just play against it. But I feel like it is very strong, like you said, Finn. But I just feel it's just kind of meh.
It's not a good day 2 deck.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
All right, so now that we're done roasting ADP, we're going to move on to the deck that did end up getting second at whatever it was, Mewtwo Box. A lot of people do say this deck is pretty skillless, but nonetheless it is still a big threat in the metagame. So how do you think it is positioned going into this tournament, and then also provide what you think the best not as played Mewbox GX tech is?
Who do you want to start with?
We'll go with the Joe Turrentine starter.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mewbox, so it just is literally the same thing as it was last format, except you get Mega Lopunny, and that's like the only thing that kind of changes. Mega Lopunny is the thing that's insane, because like even against the decks that shut off the abilities, you can just throw it down and kill things. And it's good to have in the discard. It's good to have on your bench. It just overall really good. I don't think it loses to a lot other than I don't know. I think it loses to the Pidge Control. I don't know. I haven't really seen much of the matchup, but it's just Mewbox. It does the same thing it's done since the start of it existing. So it's a good play either way if you know how to play it, and if you just pick it up and throw it down, I mean you'll probably do okay.
Yeah, I think it's pretty autopilot, especially the one that doesn't play like the tag team supporters or anything, just like the straight variant with gears and bikes and psychics and fires. You really just go full throttle, and if they have a response, you don't do much. There's not many options past that, but a lot of the time they don't. I tested the tag team one. I've been testing the tag team one a lot recently, and I like that one more. I think it has a lot more options compared to, and just has like 2 outs to almost every deck compared to the other Mewbox where you take some auto losses like to Malamar and stuff. But I think the deck's the same. I think if you're not worried about Plant Stamp, it's a solid play, and you can just steam through day 1 pretty easily.
I think Mewtwo is just the best deck in the format. I think it's incredible. It won. I mean, people just seem to kind of brush off the history that Mewtwo has had. It won Worlds, and then like what three or four regionals, and then it got second at our international. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why isn't everybody playing Mewtwo for every tournament? This deck is insane.
Yeah.
You just turn 2 can do 300 damage. You can turn 2 place 20 damage counters. Like, it's the best high roll deck. It's a fairly consistent deck, and if you just build your list with like 4 Dedenne, 4 Jirachi, 4 Switch, just like max out counts like that. And then now you have tag team supporters and tag calls. Like, it's the same deck, but it's the same deck with tag call, and it's like, what? Stupid good. Yeah, like if I was going to Daytona, 100% I would be playing Mewtwo. It's just incredible, and I'm kind of impressed that it didn't get first place instead of second place.
It's because he had a game loss.
Really? Oh, I didn't even.
Oh yeah, he had a game loss.
So basically, Mewtwo should have won every single event.
All right. So moving on to the deck that is not the BDIF right now. We're gonna be talking about the old pigeons, the good old Stamp, Mars, Chip, Ice Axe. All right. So this deck definitely in an interesting position right now. A lot of people were saying, hyping up to be the best deck in the format, and then it really underperformed at LAIC. But do you think it's a good sleeper play going into the, Daytona Regionals? Or do you think it's just underwhelming deck overall? We'll go with Christian to start, yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's a sleeper or underwhelming at all. I think it's really, really good. I think the reason Pidgey didn't have the performance everyone thought it would at LAIC was definitely, I think the Cryogonals definitely had a thing to do with that. The Pidgey list that I saw at least didn't have any outs to Cryogonal whatsoever, so you just kind of sit on a 35-card hand and like don't do anything because you can't move the Cryogonal and they're doing 40 damage. Like, that's what those lists like were playing. But I think just with like whether it be the Frostlass or the Tyrogue or whatever, you overcome that and it just becomes a good matchup. And it has a positive matchup versus Mewtwo, I think, because if they cross divide, you can just set up Articuno, and they can't really respond normally after that. The abilities are matchup solid. You know, all green stacks are solid. It's just a really good deck. And I just think it's the best deck in the format right now. But we'll see at Daytona.
All right, we'll go with Joe next.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like the reason I feel like Pidgey didn't do well is because of the Cryog, and nobody. I mean, like there was like speculation that they needed a tech for it, and then like nobody really did. So it was just kind of like, here's the Pidgey list with the double Bella that everybody ran, and then like they didn't kind of tech for the Cryogonal or whatever, so they just kind of lost. I mean, like if you hit the Cryogonal, you lost. Kind of situation. I feel like a lot of them just did, and that's why ADP did overwhelmingly okay, and like did decent, because it just hit the good matchups that didn't know how to tech against it. And I feel like Pidgey is really, really good for Daytona because they know how to get around that situation, exactly like Christian said. So, Pidgey's really good. It's definitely like close to tier 0 as we're gonna get in this format.
Yeah, I think it's quite a good deck too. I think the reason it didn't do better at Brazil is because the good players were either playing Naglord or they just decided they didn't want to get all their money stolen from them, so they didn't go to Brazil at all. So I think when we're back in America, where we're not scared of being stabbed in the streets, a lot of people are going to be playing Pidgeotto again. It's great. It's a really good deck. I mean, we're going to have Grant Manley probably playing it again. He always plays that thing, and he always kills it. It's just a super strong deck. Even with techs like Cryogonal and Zebstrika, it's like they printed Bellaba, and it's like if you're getting hit for 40 every turn with with an ADP deck, you know, you can't play items, but you don't need items to mill 6 cards off the top of your opponent's deck every turn. Like, you just Bellaba every turn. Like, you're going to deck them out before they're going to take 6 prizes if you're playing.
Resource double Bella Surge every turn.
Yeah. I mean, I did that last night. I faced a deck with Cryogonal. I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to mill you. I don't need to lock you. I need to deck you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a great play. The one concern I do have with it is just weird random decks that play a lot of basic energy and just have stuff like Zebra and in Pidgeotto. I don't know, like when I'm on ladder with Pidgeotto, I feel like I can just face random stuff and lose because I'm like, what? You play X, Y, or Z? And then I wasn't expecting it and I just lose because I can't prepare for every random thing that people are going to play. And that's kind of why I would be concerned about playing it in day one.
Yeah. And speaking of the Zebra, do you think that putting a Pidgeotech in your deck is worth it for this event?
Yes. Yes. 100%. I mean, it's always good. It's always good to tech for Pidgey, considering it's insane. It's unfair.
All right.
Yeah, I think tech is definitely needed.
Now that we're off annoying deck number 1, we're gonna get into annoying deck number 2. I bet you guys know exactly what that is. We're talking about the Doll Stall. So, what are our thoughts on Doll Stall? We'll start with Finn. We'll start with Finn this time because he's gonna cook us something good here. All right.
Oh no! I can cook you up stuff for a lot of decks, but not much on Doll Stall. I mean, I just don't care about Doll Stall. If I want to make it so my opponent can't play the game, I'm gonna play Pidgeotto because I can trade with Pidgeotto. So I don't really have much of an opinion on Doll Stall other than it's like a pretty good deck. That's pretty much all I have to say about it.
All right. So we didn't get cooked the spice from there, but we'll see if Christian can bring us the spice.
I haven't played a single game with Doll Stall. I mean, I know it works, but I mean, it's very susceptible to an early cross divide. I think even more so than Pidgey, and that's a big issue for the deck. And that's all I got on it.
That was a little bit of spice, but we're gonna move on to Father T. Let's see.
Okay. So I really like Doll Stall. I feel like it's really strong. I've played a fair bit of games with it. The Cryagonal was an issue because a few people leaked the fact that Doll Stall was going to be big, and then it got real popular, the fact that it was going to be played, and then LAIC came around, and then everybody teched for it, and it was bad. But I feel like now there's like still outs for it with like the Spiritomb, and I feel
Tyrogue as well.
Tyrogue, also Unknown Hand, really helps because you can build up the hand with the Florges, and you can keep putting the stuff back, and you can just hold the Unknown Hand and keep letting them kill. You can get as many dolls out early game, because if they're not Cryagonaling you like turn 2, they're losing, because you'll have like all your dolls out, and you can just hold the Unknown Hand until like you need to drop it and win the game. That's really good in my opinion, but I still feel like it's just really easily susceptible to the turn 1 cross divide with Mewtwo.
Turn 1.
I mean, not turn 1, turn 2. That'd be broken. That would be insane. That'd be insane. Bro.
Turn 1 cross divide.
We played Archies. But I feel like it's really good. Just throwing things that can't take prizes in the active and just milling every other turn. It is, I guess, in turn worse Pidgey because it has a little worse matchup spread. But I feel like it's got a good Malamar matchup if you play it correctly with the stadiums, whatever it's called, the Sky Pillar. Because then you can just lock out all their stadiums before their blind turn. And I feel like it's just got a lot of good matchups, especially with the Spiritomb. It can kill the Cryagonal, so you can just kind of get past that. Because once the Cryagonal is dead, you kind of win.
All right. Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
Nah.
Okay. All right. So moving on to another deck that has been recently blowing up in popularity is the Pigeon Baby Blound deck. Everybody in their right mind is talking about this deck right now. It's the 1 prizer that can kill the 3 prizers. It's the deck with the new Zoroark. That's a 1 prizer. Obviously, this deck is fantastic, but do you think it's going to be over-teched for this weekend, or do you think it's a safe play? Well, all right, the order. Let's go with Joe, Christian, Finn.
I don't really think there's very much to tech against it. I think it's just really good. What?
Dugong.
Dugong. It doesn't matter. Just kill the Dugong. Whatever. It's like like, whatever. It's insane. The deck is broken. There's not very much that can beat it other than like it loses pretty hard to like the Dollstall and the Pidges. Not Pidgey, but Dollstall loses pretty hard too. But like there's not very many things that it loses to, and it's very scary. And the deck is really good, in my opinion. Definitely one of the new top tier decks of this next format.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good. There's a lot of stuff locally here with it, but I mean, the only thing is it kind of loses to a turn 2 cross divide like all other Pidgey decks, but like past that, it beats Mewtwo every time. Even if they get like the cross divide turn 3, normally your board's so set up that it doesn't matter as much. And then the only other thing I have on the deck is I've been playing it a little, and the mirror is the worst set of game like I have ever played of Pokemon. It is actually awful. You run out of attackers and you start looping dolls so you don't deck out. It's just atrocious.
So bad. It's so
And
bad.
like I don't think I'm gonna play Blound Pidgey just because of that. I don't want to sit in day 1 and have to loop dolls until time is called. That's just really not what I want to do at Daytona. So past that, I think it's a really great deck. Beats a lot of stuff, but I don't see myself playing it.
Are you guys not playing Lana's Fishing Rod?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Does that matter? Because you run out of welder
That
too.
only gives you. Doesn't it only give you it one time back? What does that make a huge?
Yeah,
difference?
It's just if you both run out of your 4 Blounds and one person's like, well, I'll rod back and now I got one more. And the other person's like, well, shoot.
Okay, cool. There's a doll inactive. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a doll inactive, and then
Yeah, but then
normally when you're
if
about
you blaze,
when
if
you're
you're
about to run out of-
blazering every turn, you're hitting 10 damage every turn on this doll. Eventually, it's gonna die. There's
Well,
gonna be you gotta do 90
but that's
damage.
your last attacker. When you have your 5th attacker, you have to like sit it on the bench and just manually attach, and then you have to doll loop because both
No,
players
no, you
can't
just
waste
use
their last
Blazer.
attacker.
You just use Blazer.
But then they knock out your
And
last Blacephalon. And
How
you
do they do
lose.
that?
I'm using Gust, bud.
And also with what?
Oh,
What are you
Gust,
gusting?
yeah.
What are you gusting with? Ninetales?
No,
No,
Pigeon.
Pidgeotto's attack.
The attack Gust.
Oh, I was like,
Yeah, no, you have to use Gust, but that matchup's that mirror is so bad.
And that matchup sounds so bad. It's not fun at all.
Yeah, it's no fun.
I think Baby Blends is pretty solid for sure. I think it's a very, very good deck, but it does have problems with Cross Divide, and that's pretty much as far as I can figure. I mean, I'm not convinced that you necessarily beat Pidgeotto every time. I think you beat Pidgeotto a lot. But yeah, I'd say it's a very good play, especially if you don't feel like you're very confident with any of the more complex decks. It's Daytona, so in Florida, everybody likes to play Reshiram, so you're just going to bop Reshiram over and over in day 1 for sure. Yeah, definitely a good call.
Mhm.
Just don't run into a lowland Persian. You'll get ran over.
I got you right here.
I hate that deck so much.
I think if I go in
Alright.
the kitchen, I got a secret rare one, actually. I just got in the mail. No
All
leaks.
right. All right. So moving on to the next very, very, very annoying deck, so to speak, or at least a deck that I've hated ever since it's been out is Guardian.
You just hate every deck, bro.
Annoying deck.
I hate every deck that's not control, honestly. I like control. All right. Anyways, give us your opinion on Guardian. We'll go Finn, Christian, then Father T. All right.
I think Guardian's alright. I think it's gonna be a really bad pick for Daytona because there's gonna be people playing Baby Blounds. Because every time I go on ladder, it's like half Baby Blounds. It's ridiculous. It's like a third ADP, maybe a third Baby Blounds, and then a third other stuff. So like, I'm expecting bad players to play Baby Blounds, and even not bad players to play Baby Blounds. And then I'm thinking a lot of people are gonna play Reshiram because it's Daytona. And that's just how it is in Daytona. So it's like you're just going to eat a lot of L's to those 2 decks. And so I don't think it's really a good play for this event.
I think Guardian's a good deck. I think the option to control a game with greens is really good, especially in a control type variant like Guardian. But you're just gonna get destroyed by Reshiram. It's literally just the comfort pick for every single local Florida player. Everyone that I can think of, a comfort pick is definitely Reshiram, and you just get bopped by it. So I just don't think it's a solid play whatsoever.
With my testing, I feel like Guardian's really good this format. If there isn't Pidgey, Baby Brown, Malamar, stupid one-prizer decks that are just...
Did you just say Malamar was a bad matchup?
Malamar is... I mean, it depends. Depends on... if they run the Lunala Prism Star, it's really not good at all.
I don't think anyone's running the Lunala Prism Star. I think Malamar's free.
Yeah, I think you're playing Malamar.
Yeah, I guess you're right, yeah.
Mallow and Lana.
Yeah, Mallow, yeah. I feel like it's really good against, like, only Mew Box. Like, right now. I feel like that's it. I feel like you've got... Like,
I don't even think you beat, like, Mew Box.
Yeah. Reshiram and Greninja. Like, if they have both those options, it's really hard.
Stamp Plant, bud. But, like... I mean, you have to draw out of a Stamp Plant, which is really hard for Mew Box.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you get Stamp Planted and you don't draw out of it, you lose. I mean, that's really it. And I also feel like Green's Reshiram is an okay matchup. I feel like you just auto the ability loss. Like, you just take the L, and you take the L to, like, everything in the format. So I feel like it's a horrible choice for Daytona. The deck's really good, just horrible choice for Daytona.
Yeah. I think the deck sucks, but that's just me. Anyways. Alright, so moving on to the last, like, major... Actually, there's one more after this, unfortunately. The second last major deck is Big Blowns. What do you think is the best way to build this deck, and do you think that it is... a good pick for this here Daytona.
Rudy can't even make a full sentence about this F1.
We'll go with the Christian Finjo.
I think the best one is just kind of the one with Stinger and the little Blown to get around dolls and have a good matchup versus Pidgey. I think it's good. I don't think it's the best play for Daytona. I think you have some, like, rough matchups in some places. I don't think Mew is as good as you want it to be. I think there's just a lot of options for other decks. I just don't see it being a great play. I don't think it has been a great play for any of the standard regionals so far that I've seen just with the meta. And even the decks it's supposed to beat, sometimes I feel like it just doesn't. Because it's so reliant on Beast Ring. And if they just, stamp you to 4 and you're like, oh, can't Beast Ring, you kind of just lose games. That's how my testing has gone with it. So I don't know about you guys.
I think it's great. I love it. I played it at, what was that? The second standard regionals. I forget what it was called.
Knoxville.
Yeah. Me and Hunter pretty much brought that deck back. We tested it for like 2 weeks straight, and he got top 8 with the list, and then I got top 32 with the list, and we liked it a lot. And I think it's still good. I don't think it lost too much. The biggest thing I'm concerned about with the deck is Baby Blowns, because I'm not sure that exchange really works out for you.
Well, there has been a Big Blown list playing 4 copies of Island Challenge Amulet.
I mean, it's still not good. It's still not good.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's just a dead card in other matchups.
I mean, well, it's not. That's not true.
It's not dead, but it's not dead. But it's like it's not.
Well, you have a one prize. Now you have this one prize thing swinging for 300.
I think it's pretty good. Baby Blowns. You got big small Blowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
big
You
small
still have
Blowns.
Lost Zone 3 energy to kill it. I mean, like, when I can just, I feel like it's still a bad matchup because eventually you run out of the amulets, and with dolls, I feel like it's really not that good. Like dolls being played in Baby Blowns is a very scary thing because you can just throw those up on turns that you can just throw the dolls up and just wait because the Blown can't.
How much HP does it have? How much HP does Baby Blown have?
120.
120.
Yeah.
So you can just throw the doll up in between turns and like just build up the Blound. And eventually
Yeah,
you'll run
but
out
this
of-
is why you dugong 2 Pidgeys.
Oh my god, stop!
That's what I'm talking about. I think Dugong is literally one of the best cards right now, and nobody's playing it. I think it's fantastic.
What do you run it? Well, I mean, like, how do you attack with you run triples?
Welder onto Dugong. It's triple accelerate. It's triple colorless. You welder to Dugong, attach, kill 2 Pidgeys.
Okay, wait.
I don't mind that at all.
What are you running the
That
Dugong?
seems pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
It's good, but like,
No, or if they have a Blound, look, if they have a Blound active, you kill a Blound and a Pidgey. Get rid of 3 energy off their board and kill the draw guy. And tell me that's not fantastic.
Like, it's good, but I'm just thinking, how are you gonna consistently? What decks are you running this in? What?
Any deck with triple acceleration or welder. That's
I
it.
mean, that means you have to. You just
Or Psychic Recharge.
Or Malamar, yeah.
Or Malamar, yeah.
Or
I mean,
ADP's attack, Ultimate Ring.
I mean, abilities are plays the Ditto for Zebstrika, so you could just have the Dugong there.
So you just put it in anything.
Yeah, anything that
Dugong
plays
in
Ditto.
there.
I think
Anything that plays Ditto.
You can literally play. I think Dugong is literally the best card in the game right now, but nobody's listening to me. But it's okay. All right.
Oh, can't put it in Guardian. Cannot put Dugong in Guardian.
Yes, you can. You can.
That's not
You
good.
can, you can Mina and Fairy Song.
Stop!
Okay, let me finish about big blinds though. So
Yeah. He's gonna finish up his big blinds.
my presentation. I'm not sure if big blinds is actually better than baby blinds right now, but the thing is, it beats Pidgeotto, it beats Zard, and it beats Mewtwo, and that's really solid. And nobody's really teching for it right now. Nobody's playing the Finny, which is sick. Amulet is so good for the deck because if you didn't have Amulet, you would get run over by ADP. They would go Alter Creation, and then they're hitting you for 180 every turn, and you'd be like, oh, I lose. But now that you can Amulet, they're just still taking 2 prizes, and having 100 less HP doesn't matter because they hit for 180 anyway. So you're beating like all of the tag team decks, and that's really sick. So I think it's a very good call actually for the tournament, but I'm not sure if it's the very best call. And I don't think it's relying on B strings. I think that's just not true. There's this card called Welder. I I don't know. I just think it's a really solid deck, and you have trade. Like, I don't know. I don't know why anybody thinks it's not good, to be honest with you. I can't see a reason why it wouldn't be good, other than maybe the Baby Bonds matchup.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think it's very solid, actually. All right, so now the last relevant deck that we're going to be talking about is Malamar. It's been everybody's comfort pick for, at least in the New York area. Everybody plays Malamar. And, yeah, it's a comfort pick for a lot of players, and it's a solid deck against multi-prize attackers. So what do you guys think about the state of Malamar right now? We'll go, yeah, I always forget the order, but we'll go Joe, Christian, Finn.
I don't like Malamar. I've never liked Malamar. It's inconsistent. I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like, I never liked Malamar. I feel like you have to like super heavy high roll to do anything with the deck at all times. There's never a non-high rolling situation with Malamar.
I disagree. I think Malamar is extremely skill based.
Yeah.
Psychic recharge, attack.
Where are you putting your damage every turn? It's very important.
Yeah, I think it's pretty skill based.
I think it's a very skill based deck. I mean, obviously you can get lucky and get a lot of Malamars and start rolling early, but even when you don't, I still think that you can pull out games if you play the deck well. Like K-Tron.
I mean, I agree, but I feel like the deck only does like 3 things. It either shadow impacts or spreads damage, or
well, every deck does like 30 things, but you have to do the 3 things well. You have to play the deck.
It doesn't do the 3 things well, and that's the issue. The issue is it doesn't do the 3 things well consistently. You don't have Welder, and you can very easily just get outplayed very easily. Malamar is a very...
Yeah, you can get outplayed if you play wrong, but if you play skillfully, then I think it's a very very good deck. I don't know.
I mean,
It doesn't have Welder. That's a good point. That's a big flaw
Yeah.
of Malamar's. It doesn't play the card Welder.
It
Yeah,
does
it
not
does
play
not play
Welder.
Welder.
That's pretty
That's
bad.
cool.
Pretty bad.
But like, it's I don't know. I feel like you can do well with it. Deck's not horrible. I just don't like it. I don't ever feel comfortable when I played it. Played it at the DC Open. Let's not talk about that. It was bad. It was bad. You never draw anything. Like, if you don't draw anything and you miss Rachis, you lose, and it's just like you sit there and you kind of just like 130. And if they can heal off to 130, you go, oh no.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just think if you don't draw well, it's pretty bad, and that's pretty likely with Malamar. I don't like its ADP matchup at all. I think it's really, really poor. Even if you get the clear vision off, it's still tough because most of them are playing heavy counts of Mallow and Lana, and that's just really hard to get around. And good players obviously won't bench themselves into a Lopunny attack that can get you some prizes. It's not really good there. I mean, you do 100-0 Baby Blounds, which is nice. But past that, I just don't think it has a good enough matchup spread to do extremely well. I've seen a few variants popping up with Ultra Necrozma again, and that I think that's a little better in my eyes than the variant with just like Mally, straight Psychic, because it gives you more options. But past that, I don't think Mally's very good.
So, I think if you're gonna play it, it's got to be the version that Cutter Tap made. Subtle flex. It's got to be playing double or even triple Stealthy Hood. You got to be playing Ultra Necrozma. Got to be playing Great Catcher. And you got to be playing Dawn Wings. So that's the only viable way to play Malamar, in my opinion. But I think it's a decent call, but a horrible deck. Like, if you're just gonna be Michael Catron and just draw what you need every game, except for that game I played against him in day 2, then you're gonna win the tournament. But like, you just don't, because it's a stage 1 deck, and the stage 1 doesn't have trade nor airmail nor ultra conversion, and you can't play a stage 1 deck or even a stage 2 deck if it doesn't have that draw support. And so I think just on principle, Malamar isn't a good call unless you're really trying to high roll. And if you're really trying to high roll, you should just play Mewtwo anyway. But it does have some good matchups, I'd say. I think people underrate, how well Malamar actually can do against Mewtwo. Obviously, Cross Divide is a problem, but if you average out the number of games, they don't have Jirachi and you have Shadowbox, so it's like I think you win more than 50% of your games. And I do think it's skill based too. Like, it's kind of like there's one skill to develop with the deck, but it's like if you don't have that skill developed, you're gonna do really bad with it. And it's like you have to know where you're putting your spell tag damage, and you have to do it right every time, and you have to put your distortion door damage in the right place every time, and you have to sequence very well on turn 1 and turn 2. I think a lot of people don't really realize how important the sequencing is in the early game with Malamar. So there's a lot of skill involved with Malamar, in my opinion. It's just not very much a deck that's like, I'm going to do this in this matchup, and I have a different strategy. It's like you're doing the same thing pretty much all the time. You just have to understand how to do that one thing all the time.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything Finn said, except I don't like Dawn Wings, but we're not going to go into that now. All right, so I got some closing questions for you guys. The first, there's going to be 3, but the first of which is pretty important question here. Do you guys think that we saw a big lack of custom catcher in LAIC? Do you think it is a good idea, because so many people are banking on the fact that people are only playing Great Catcher now, to actually include custom catcher? What do you guys? Let's have the debate between custom and Great Catcher right now. We'll go with let's get Father T, then Christian, then Finn.
I mean, realistically, it depends on what deck you play, because it depends on what prizes you need to take. Like Baby Blounds, you just run Great Catcher, because you just if they don't have anything, you just kill what's in their active, or if they have things, you can bring up and kill with the Great Catchers. It doesn't matter. I feel like in Pidgey, you definitely still run the custom catchers, because you have to do the stuff. But I mean, Mewtwo Box, it's meh. You just run great catchers. You don't need anything else. You just kill things.
You have Venom Shot as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like in aggro decks, like very aggro decks, it's okay to just run the great catchers because you're either taking prizes or you're losing. And I feel like in the more I feel like Guardy still needs to run custom catchers, or like a weird split. I don't know how that works, but I've seen some weird lists on that. And I feel like Abilities Art is fine to run Abilities Art is preference. I feel like you can play whichever one you want.
But don't you think people are going to be?
I'm at greens. My bad.
Don't you think people are going to be taking advantage of the fact that people are only running great catchers now and building decks around that? So it would.
I feel like to switch up an entire card in your deck. I mean, that's like saying, I feel like my opponent plays Cynthia in his deck, so I'm going to tech against the Cynthia. I mean, like it's whatever. It's like you either. It's like whatever. To be honest. You play what you feel like is going to get you the most wins, and if your opponent has some weird trick up his sleeve to get rid of your custom catchers, then fine by them. Or to do something based on that mechanic is different.
Well, basically what I'm saying is they're banking like their strategy off you cannot bring this up because it is not a GX Pokemon.
I mean, yeah, I understand that, but I feel like it's not that relevant. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of things that can capitalize on that.
I know a certain one, but we're not going to talk about that. All right.
A couple things.
Christian, your turn.
I think the most relevant matchup that custom catchers would make a difference in any deck is obviously Dullstall. Just the ability to play customs can net you 2 extra prizes, especially if they set up slow. But past that, I'm going to stick to my belief that I think Greens decks, or all Greens decks right now, should be playing customs, and all ability decks should be playing Great Catcher. I just feel like the option for ability decks is much less. You're not going to have the option to custom catcher in ability decks more often than not. You're playing Dedenne. You have awkward hands at times that need to be Dedenne'd away, whereas Greens decks, you can just grab the 2 customs. And I think the Greens decks can also play the Great Catcher, in those decks. But past that, I just don't think 4 customs is worth the slot in, especially decks like Mewtwo, where you can still Venom Shot. And because if you need to custom something on the bench that's not a GX, Venom Shot should be knocking it out anyways. Especially with a lot of decks cutting Mew, from what I've seen. And I just think ability decks should be playing Great Catcher, Greens decks should be playing custom, minus Pidgey, of course, because Pidgey needs to be playing custom. But that's my belief on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what Christian just said. I think you have to keep in mind that when you're playing custom catcher, you have to play 2 cards simultaneously, and people forget that. They're just like, oh, well, it's 4 slots as opposed to 2 slots, and it's like, okay, that's part of it, but I think the main thing you want to be thinking about is actually just, is my deck able to consistently get 2 copies of the same card in my hand? And if the answer to that is no, you just pretty much have to run Great Catcher instead.
All right. So moving on to the next closing question is, what do you think is the best rogue pick for this event? We'll start with Finn this time and go around the circle.
Well, I have this here article on my website called
Cuttertab.com. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I think a few people know now, I've been working on these Persian variants for a while, and I like them a lot. I'm probably going to play one of them for San Diego. You can check that out on my site if you want to, but I just think Persian's an incredible card with Amulet out now and Roxy out, and that's definitely my rogue pick, and I don't think I have anything else that's too I guess Dark Box isn't really a rogue deck, but I actually think that's a pretty sick call.
That Verbank guy.
Dark Box. Everybody's like,
it's because that Verbank guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, like, he's just Dark Box version of you before Eggrow did well.
But I can't do Eggrow anymore. I can't do Eggrow anymore. I represent a store.
Okay. But yeah, I think Dark Box is really solid. I think people forget how insane Dark Moon and Greedy Crush are. It's like, you're going to hit a tag team and just kill it no matter how much HP they have, and they can't play trainers on their next turn, and then you're going to follow it up with Great Catcher on a Dedenne and take 3 prizes on it. So that's just insane against a bunch of the meta. and you gain Red Blue, you gain Sil Valley, you gain Great Catcher. The deck just gained a lot of new stuff, and nobody really wants to give Dark Box any credit because everybody hates it, but I think it's a good call.
All right, Christian?
My favorite rogue pick for this event is Nuzzle. The deck. The deck isn't great like by itself. Just the Nuzzle variants.
What is Nuzzle? I've never even heard of it.
Okay, so there's an Emolga that says search your deck for another Pokemon.
Yeah, okay.
And you just set up and you have Pikachu, and Pikachu's and Raichu does 20 damage for each lightning energy in play, and you have the Pachirisu that says for a lightning you can put 5 lightnings on your bench. You put a lightning for every Nuzzle Pokemon.
That's broken.
And I've been playing it a decent amount. It's very consistent. I just have fun with it, but there's a few lists that I've seen recently that I've been working on that involves the biggest issue for the deck is its Mewtwo matchup, and the Reshizek helps a lot in that matchup, especially if you play plants because the deck has room for it because you don't play any GX Pokemon with abilities, and I think the deck has a lot of potential because of its consistency. And I would expect myself to bring it to a few league challenges in the upcoming future, for sure. And I also think it could see, a decent amount of play at Daytona. Not decent amount, but I think one person can play it. I think one person could play it and maybe go 5-2-2.
All right. Very good. Father T?
I like Bayheem a lot. Bayheem's kind of cool. Yeah, I feel like Bayheem's got a lot of potential, especially with a certain card Finn likes. But the cat boy, not Ninetales,
Alolan?
Persian, yeah, Persian. I feel like it's got a lot of potential.
Actually, that sparks an idea in me. Yeah, continue, Joe. Continue.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I feel like there's a lot of options for the deck, but I also feel like it's still got a bad matchup against
it has a bad matchup against itself because it can't.
It's got a really bad matchup against itself. Yeah, but I feel like if you get it going, if you can play fast enough and just do the Bayheem things, I feel like you can do fine. I don't know. There's definitely no chance you'd ever win any event with the deck, but I feel like you could very easily cap some points. All right, very easily, but I don't think there's any chance Bayheem will ever win any event, but I feel like it's got a shot. I feel like it's got a better shot than Nuzzle, but
all right. And all right, and the last question for today. I know, so sad. Every viewer right now is just bawling their eyes out that we're already on the last question. But what are your top 3 picks for this event? We'll go, I don't know, Father T, Finn, and Christian.
Baby Blowns, Bayheem, and maybe either between that Dullstall or New Box. I mean, between the third place spot is kind of really close. I feel like Pidgey Blowns is just way too good. I feel like you're gonna play a lot of mirror matches if you play it, but I just feel like if you don't hit mirror matches, if you're that one lucky person, you have a very good
Why don't you tech the dugong into your Baby Blowns?
No, because you can tech dugong in anything, Rudy. Just play a Ditto.
No, in Baby Blowns you actually can.
I know, bro. Just
all right. Anyways, Christian or Finn, I think it's your turn.
My top 3, number 1 would definitely be Mewtwo, which is best deck in the format, has been, always will be. That's a pretty big claim. Maybe maybe you can't say that. Number 2, I don't know. It's just Mewtwo, man. You just gotta play Mewtwo.
There's no other decks at all.
Quad Dugong.
Play Dugong.
Quad Dugong.
Bro, Quad Dugong. Bro, you don't beat anything.
You beat Baby Blowns.
That's so good.
I guess for me, if I was going to the event, which I'm not, in no particular order, it would probably be Mewtwo, Persian variants, and then baby Blounds or big Blounds. Yeah.
All right.
Top three, Pidgey, Mew Mew, with the tag call stuff, and then probably third would be Baby Blown Pidgey. And if all else fails, I can just go to vendors the morning of and buy Nuzzle for $25. So,
Bro,
but yeah,
why buy Nuzzle when you can just buy Behemoth?
bro, because
You know what you could tech into Behem because it has triple acceleration energy?
Dugong.
Dugong!
All right, guys.
Bro, what are you gonna do
Any
if they
closing
promote
shout outs here? What happened?
What are you gonna do if they promote Goomy though?
Dugong. Any closing shout outs here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cuttertap.com, all right?
Cuttertap.com. And if you want coaching, send me email at cuttertap I can't say anything other than cuttertap. Okay. Whew. Never mind.
Cuttertap me an email at cuttertap.com. All right.
Yeah, never mind. That's it. That's all.
All right. Father T, pick it up.
Just my my team, my sponsors, and the gaming, and that's about it. RudyWade music, 30 racks.
Great.
music.
Bro, go bump some 30 racks while you try to drown out our voices.
All right. Christian?
Shout out Jake Silverman and the rest of the insane South Florida Pokemon players that have helped me test over the past week. It's been fun.
All right. And for me, shout out ROC Games LLC and shout out the music career. And go check out my Spotify. I'll probably link that in the description. All right. Hope you guys have All right. Hope you guys have a fantastic event at Daytona, and I wish you guys good luck, and we'll see you guys in the next one.